I didn't mean to hear it. It wasn't like I was snooping or hiding behind doors trying to catch her in something. I had just come home early that day. Traffic was lighter than usual, and I figured I'd surprise her. Maybe we'd order dinner, watch something, just be normal again. The house felt different the second I stepped in. Not quiet. There were voices. Laughter. Hers. I slowed down without even thinking, my keys still in my hand, and that's when I heard her say it, casual, almost amused. I don't need to worry. He always gives in. There was a pause, then more laughter. Not just hers. Another voice, her friend I think, murmured something I couldn't quite catch. But I didn't need to. Something inside me just dropped. I stood there longer than I should have, staring at the wall like it might explain what I'd just heard. My chest felt tight, not angry, just hollow, like I'd missed something important for a long time. And this was the moment it finally caught up to me. I cleared my throat before walking into the living room, making enough noise so it didn't look like I'd been standing there listening. She looked up, surprised. "Oh, you're home early." I forced a smile. "Yeah, thought I'd beat the traffic." Her friend, Sana, gave me a polite nod. "We were just talking." "Yeah," I said. "I figured." I didn't bring it up. Not then. Because I wasn't even sure what I was feeling yet. We'd been married for 4 years. If you asked anyone, they'd say we were stable. Not perfect, but comfortable. We didn't fight much. We didn't have those loud, dramatic arguments people talk about. Most disagreements just faded. Or maybe I let them fade. I started thinking about that a lot after that day. Little things began replaying in my head. Moments I hadn't paid attention to before. Like how she always picked the restaurant, even when I said I didn't mind either way. Or how plans with my family got postponed because she wasn't in the mood, but her plans always seemed to go through. At the time, it felt like compromise. Now, it felt like a pattern. A quiet one. The kind you don't notice until someone points it out, or laughs about it. A few nights later, we were deciding on something simple. What to do for the weekend. I was thinking we could visit my parents, I said. It's been a while. She didn't even look up from her phone. This weekend? I already told Sana we'd go out on Saturday. Okay, what about Sunday then? She sighed, like I'd asked for something unreasonable. Sunday's usually when I rest. You know that. I nodded slowly. Right, that was it. No argument, no pushback, just done. And suddenly, her voice from that day echoed again in my head. He always gives in. I didn't say anything else that night, but something had shifted. Not loudly, not dramatically, just enough that I noticed it. The thing about realizing something like that is, it doesn't leave you alone. You start seeing it everywhere. The way she'd make decisions without asking me first. The way I'd adjust, rearrange, agree. Not because I had to, but because it was easier. Because I thought that's what being a good partner meant. Keeping things smooth. Keeping her happy. I used to think that was love. Now I wasn't so sure. A week later, I finally brought it up. We were sitting at the dining table, halfway through dinner. It wasn't a fight, just a quiet moment. "I heard you the other day," I said. She looked up, confused. "What do you mean?" "When Sana was here, you said, you don't need to worry, that I always give in." There was a pause. Not long, but enough. Then she gave a small, almost dismissive smile. "You're overthinking it." "Am I?" "It was just a joke," she said. "We were talking about relationships. Everyone says things like that." I watched her for a second. "So it's not true?" She shrugged. "You're easygoing. That's a good thing. Easygoing." I repeated that word in my head like I was trying to understand it. Easygoing, or predictable. She frowned slightly. "Why are you making this into a big deal?" "I'm not," I said quietly. "I just want to understand." She leaned back in her chair. "There's nothing to understand. You don't like conflict. You prefer peace. That's who you are." I nodded slowly, but something about the way she said it didn't sit right. It didn't sound like appreciation. It sounded like certainty, like she knew exactly how I'd react every time. That night, I didn't sleep much. I kept thinking about who I'd been in this relationship, not just with her, but with myself. I had always taken pride in being calm, patient, reasonable. I didn't like arguments. I didn't like tension, so I avoided it. But somewhere along the way, avoiding conflict turned into avoiding myself. I stopped asking for things I wanted, stopped pushing back when something didn't feel right, stopped being fully present. And she noticed. Of course she did. The next test came sooner than I expected. She brought up a trip, something she wanted to plan with her friends. A week-long getaway. "I already told them I'd go," she said casually. "I just need to confirm dates with you." I looked at her. "You already told them?" "Yeah, but it's fine. You'll manage, right?" There it was again. That quiet assumption. That I'd adjust. That I'd say yes. For a second, I almost did. It was automatic. The habit was still there. But then something stopped me. "I don't think I'm okay with that," I said. The words felt strange in my mouth. Heavy. She blinked. "What?" "I mean, I wish you had talked to me before committing." "It's just a trip," she said, her tone sharpening slightly. Why are you acting like this? I'm not acting like anything, I replied. I just want to be part of decisions that affect us. She stared at me for a moment, like she was trying to figure out what had changed. This isn't like you. I nodded. I know. That was the first real tension we'd had in a long time. It wasn't loud. No shouting. No slammed doors. But it lingered. She became quieter after that. Not cold, but distant. Like she was adjusting to a version of me she hadn't expected. And honestly, I was adjusting too. To the discomfort. To the uncertainty. To the possibility that maybe things weren't as balanced as I thought. A few days later, she finally said it. You've changed, she told me one evening. We were sitting on the couch, the TV playing something neither of us was watching. I think I'm just noticing things I didn't before, I said. Like what? I hesitated, then answered honestly. Like how often I give things up without realizing it. She didn't respond right away. I never asked you to do that, she said eventually. I know, I replied. That's the thing. You didn't have to. Silence filled the room. Not uncomfortable, just real. I thought you were okay with it, she said quietly. I thought so too. That was the moment everything became clear. Not because she was wrong, not because I was right, but because we had both been living inside an unspoken agreement neither of us fully understood. She had learned that I'd bend, and I had learned to bend without questioning why. Things didn't magically fix after that. There were awkward conversations, moments where we both had to stop and rethink how we spoke, how we decided, how we listened. Sometimes I pushed too hard, trying to correct things. Sometimes she resisted, not used to the change. But slowly, something more honest started to take shape. Not perfect, but real. I still think about that sentence sometimes. I don't need to worry. He always gives in. It hurt when I first heard it, not because she said it, but because at the time it was true. And the hardest part of all of it wasn't confronting her. It was realizing how much of myself I had quietly set aside just to keep things easy. We're still together, not in the same way as before. Better, I think. More aware, more balanced. Not because we stopped loving each other, but because we finally started paying attention to how that love actually worked. And if there's one thing I've learned from all of it, it's that peace in a relationship shouldn't come from one person always giving in. It should come from both people finally being seen.